Hello, everybody, and welcome into the AP Sports Football Podcast. Hope you guys are having a really nice day today. Haven't posted in a while. It's been about a couple days or whatever, but we'll be getting out some more content here and then. I have great plans for that in the future. I have a lot of great ideas that we'll be talking about today. But for today's episode here on July 7th, it's a good one. It's a good one. The main things we'll talk about today are rivalries. Basically, certain rivalries that I think could take the next step up, what rivalries are coming back. But they're a good episode. I have the ultimate favorite that a lot of people have to win. Are they actually the favorite? And then I have a little segment at the end called What Ifs. So the what if segment are basically it's a what if. Like, what if so-and-so beats so-and-so? What if blah, 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 blah. Like, if, you know what I mean? So that will be at the very end of the show, so stay tuned for that. Please watch that at the end. But furthermore, we'll start off right now with the rivalries part. So the first bullet point I have here is Ohio State versus Michigan. It's a huge rivalry, probably the biggest, one of the biggest in all of sports, maybe the biggest in college football. But Ohio State versus Michigan. So the reason why I have this down, I want to talk about this today, is so Ryan Day is currently 1-3 versus Michigan in his career at Ohio State. He had that one in 2019, the COVID year, and then which they did not play, and then 3 straight Michigan wins the past 3 years. So if we go back to Harbaugh, when Harbaugh was on the hot seat at Michigan, everybody wanted him to beat Ohio State. That's what his goal. His goal was to beat Ohio State, take that next step. He could beat the people there, like the small people there. He could beat Penn State, Iowa, Michigan State. He would beat all that. But the question was he needed to beat Ohio State. Because he would beat Michigan State, Iowa, all that. But Ohio State was one that he could not. So is it almost getting to that point with Ryan Day? I mean, Ryan Day is a great coach. Don't get me wrong. Great coach. Great coach. Very few losses, under 10 losses in his career at Ohio State during these was his 5-year span that he's had, 5 years. But if this is the year that they need to beat Michigan, it is like, well, this is the year. Like, if they needed a year to be that, this is the year. So they're banking on a national championship as well. It's basically, you look at how their roster's being built, it's basically natty or bust. That's how it is. But to get to the natty, you have to go through Michigan. Because that mindset of a game will have a huge impact. Let's say they're 11-0 or whatever. They host Michigan. Michigan we'll just beats them. We'll just say that. Michigan goes in, 4th straight year, they beat them. That's a huge mental impact on them. I don't know if that'll drive them, but we'll have to see. But for right now, I mean, if you're an Ohio State fan or you like Ohio State, you want Ohio State to be Michigan. That is the overall goal. And you want them to win a national championship, but you really want to see them beat Michigan. You don't want to be the vice versa of what happened to Michigan, losing 8 straight years in a row, 14 of the last 15. I think that's right. But I mean, you need to beat Michigan, which I think they have the capability to do that. Their squad, I think, talent-wise is better. But I also think Ohio State has probably one of the best talents in the country, if not the best. That talent room, which we'll get into that further on later in the show today, actually. But Ohio State, Michigan, I think that has a huge impact this year for rivalries. I mean, you need to win that. That's a game you need to win. But moving on to our next rivalry that I'll be talking about today, Auburn versus Bama. Auburn versus Alabama. So I want to take a little bit of time today to actually talk about Auburn versus Alabama. So there's a new coach for Alabama, new era over there, new Iron Bowl era, as you could say. Nick Saban, he was there, Iron Bowl, all that. But Alabama new coach, how will Kalen DeBoer do in his first year at Alabama, which we have our predictions on that coming out later. But I think the Auburn versus Alabama rivalry, I think that'll be a very good rivalry. I mean, I think that'll be a very good game. That Iron Bowl game never disappoints. Even last year, that Alabama team, the last-second throw, the last-minute throw, last under 30-second throw, Jalen Milroe just throwing it up, 4th down and long, just Isaiah Bond, corner of the end, like, that game brings you excitement. It brings you a great atmosphere. It's surreal. But that Auburn versus Alabama, the reason why I want to talk about that game is Could Auburn do the upset this year? Because I think Bama will be favored, but that Auburn team's sneaky. That Auburn team is very sneaky. They're going to be very well coached, well disciplined. That Auburn team will need to do a lot of stuff throughout the season to get ready for that Alabama game. That is basically their, I don't want to say Super Bowl, but I mean, I guess you could call it that. But with that Auburn team, this Auburn-Alabama rivalry, I mean, if you look back, Auburn competed with Nick Saban through Alabama's glory days. You look at that, they beat them multiple times throughout the entire Nick Saban glory days. I mean, you look at that, but this, like, I love this rivalry. I think it's second best behind Ohio State, Michigan, in my opinion. But I would love to see how, throughout the year, how that will affect stuff with the new coach in Tuscaloosa. But moving on to our third one, and this one's a rivalry that a lot of people, it's a rivalry. It's not a big one, but I think it's a rivalry that could maybe be very, very, very well anticipated this year. Florida State versus Miami. Florida State versus Miami. So, if everything goes to plan, Florida State and Miami, they both will be 7, or to their plan, as I should say. They both will be 7-0 going into that matchup with each other. And it's at Miami, but it's basically a neutral site game. But that game will be a very, very, very big game in the ACC standings. A very massive big game in the ACC standings. So, in Miami, they could be sneaky this year. I mean, it could be the old Miami. Miami could come out week 1 against Florida. I mean, who knows? That could just all crumble down. I mean, stuff doesn't go to plan. We're looking at a halftime score. Maybe Florida's up at halftime by a couple scores. Miami just goes down. It's the season. It's like a big snowball. It just goes down. But it could be vice versa. Miami could be 7-0 walking into Florida State. So that's a very big game that I want to look at. I mean, that's going to be a rivalry game you've seen in the past, early 2000s, late 90s. I mean, it's a very, very physical rivalry. You've seen it. It's just like Florida State. Maybe that's not as big. Miami, Florida State isn't as big as Florida State. But FSU, Miami, I think will be a very, very good matchup. I think it'll be a very good matchup this year. That's a rivalry I want to keep my eye out on later throughout the season. But the next one I want to talk about, the big one I want to talk about actually, Texas versus Texas A&M. It is back. It is back. So, Texas versus Texas A&M. That's gonna be a great game. That's gonna be a great game. Texas walking into Kyle Field. If Kyle Field is as what they want it to be, that rivalry, they have a whole bunch of bottled up emotions from that rivalry. You know, Texas just kind of like, I guess, looked away like a oh, okay, you're over there, we're gonna look this way type of deal. That rivalry is going to be very electric. I think Texas A&M is going to come out with a lot of energy. I mean, it's later on throughout the year, but at Kyle Field is one of the most toughest places to play. I mean, if you see my video about that, but I think Texas A&M versus Texas will be a very, very huge matchup this year. I wonder how Steve Sarkisian will handle that. I mean, that is at the end of the year, so maybe Texas at that time, hopefully Texas has a tough schedule, don't get me wrong. So if they maybe have a couple losses, no losses, undefeated, walking in, that's a huge game for implications. Huge game for playoff implications. So in Texas A&M, that could be a game that determines if you're a team that's like 10-2, 9-3, 8-4. That is that type of game. So that's a huge game. But I cannot wait for Texas versus Texas A&M. That rivalry is huge. That rivalry is something else over there in Texas. I mean, they hate each other. They hate each other. I mean, you look at this, so real quick off topic, but you see the Texas A&M baseball coach, he was saying, oh, I want to stay at Texas A&M. I love Texas A&M. 24 hours later, he's at Texas. I can tell you one thing, Texas A&M fans don't love him no more. They don't like that guy at all. I can tell you that right now. And that's just baseball. So football, it's a whole different environment over there in Texas. I mean, what they say, it's bigger in Texas. But Texas versus Texas A&M, I think that will be a very, very, very good game later on in the year. I think it's a very good rivalry. I am glad that rivalry is back in college football. I hope everyone will watch that game. But moving on to our next segment of the podcast today, of the show. It's about the favorite, basically one of the favorites, if not the favorite, Ohio State. So, Ohio State, are they the favorite? I think they are. I think they should be the favorite with what they have. Georgia, I think, is second. Very, very close, but I think Ohio State has a slight edge in that department. But Ohio State, I think is a very, very, very good team. Very good team. I think they deserve to be the favorite. They have good reason to be the favorite. You look at what they brought in, the talent they have, not even just from the transfer portal, the recruiting. Jeremiah Smith, that wide receiver, as a true freshman, 5-star. He's going to be very, very impactful. You look at the tight end that they have, the tight end room. That's going to be a very, very good room that they have. That talent at Ohio State, it's very, very, very good. Very, very good. So, Ohio State as the favorite, as I want to talk about later on real quick. Do they deserve to be the favorite? Do they deserve to be the favorite over Georgia? So, I'm going to say yes as why they deserve to be the favorite. That talent is just, it's unreal, as what I just stated about 30 seconds ago. But the only way that I see them being very, very good, which in my opinion I think Will Howard will be their starting quarterback. If Will Howard can produce, that team will be in the national championship game. That team will be in the national championship game. That defense will be perfectly fine. That defense will handle themselves. But if Will Howard can control that offense, make that offense his, I think Ohio State will be in the national championship game. I think they'll be the Big Ten champion as well. So Ohio State, they have a lot of question marks to fill early on, but they have to travel to Penn State, which is a huge game. Travel to Eugene to play Oregon. Those are two tough matchups. That'll be a very, very, very good test for them. That is middle of the year. But they host Michigan at the very end of the year as well. So Ohio State as the favorite, I think they are the favorite. They should be the favorite. They're the most talented team in the college football. They are probably, if not the best team in college football. They are very good. I think they're going to do exactly that. They're going to come out. They're going to dominate opponents. I don't think there's going to be I don't know if there will be a game on their schedule where you look at it, a non-tough team puts up a challenge for them. I just don't see it. I just don't see it happening. But Ohio State as the favorite, I think very well so. They are very good. They should be the favorite. But we'll move on to our next segment that I was talking about later on, the what if segment. The what if segment. So, here we go. We'll start off with the first what if. And these are all what ifs. So, these are hypothetical scenarios. So, basically, it's what if. So, we'll do the first one right here. What if Michigan beats Texas week 2? So, the reason why I have that as a what if is nobody's planning on Michigan to beat Texas. Nobody's planning on it. The spread, you look at it, was it 3.5 Texas minus 3.5 for Texas. But nobody's planning on Michigan to beat Texas with what Michigan lost on the offensive side of the ball, the key guys they lost on the defensive side of the ball. And Texas are having Quinn Ewers come back, Isaiah Bond in the transfer portal. That defense is still going to be good. No one's expecting Michigan to beat Texas. So, hypothetically, what if Michigan does beat Texas? So, as you can see, the what if scenarios, what's going on, yeah. So, I think if Michigan beats Texas, that is a statement to the whole country. It's a statement to the whole country, which the only way I see Michigan beating Texas is not in a shootout. It is not in a shootout. The only way I see beating Texas is if Michigan plays very, very good defense. They maybe get a defensive score. They maybe run the ball. That culture that they have built up in Ann Arbor, in the trenches, that just dominates the game. They make it a physical game of what they want to make it. That's the only way I see Michigan beat Texas. So what if that happens? It's a statement to the whole country that Michigan's back. They didn't leave. The culture they have there is built now. It's cemented in. That is their identity. That is their identity. So if Ohio State fans look at it, not even Ohio State fans, as Ohio State as a whole, you got to look at that. You're like, oh crap, they're still here. We have to go through that. You look at Oregon, we have to go to Michigan and play that. Look at Washington, USC, all these teams over there in the Big Ten now. That it's just a statement for Michigan if that can happen. And then I think that will also be a very good morale booster, culture booster up in that locker room up in Ann Arbor as well. But we'll move on to my second what if. This is a very, it's not maybe a what if, but it's a very good scenario. But I think what if it happens? What if multiple SEC teams finish the season 9-3, 10-2, and the SEC champ is not undefeated? So the SEC champ hasn't been undefeated. You look at Alabama last year; they had that loss, but you look at it, the SEC teams, if you look at their schedules, every SEC team schedule, you look at it, they have the chance to do what the Big 12 was known as doing, as beating up on each other. So, let's say there's 2 to 3 teams that have 2 losses, because if you look at the schedule, it's all very hypothetical. It's a very, very good path to all that happens. They beat up on each other. Like, let's say, for example, Texas, if Texas beats Alabama, Alabama beats Georgia, Georgia beats, there's just so many scenarios. I can't even, think of one because there's just so many. But if there's multiple SEC teams that are 9-3, and we have the at-large bids for the conference expansion, or for the college football expansion, are those teams going to get more favored? Because are they going to look at it as those teams, are they better than everyone else, so they're going to play tougher competition, so they're bound to lose a couple games, or is it they're not as strong, so they're going to have a lot of key holes or whatever that they're missing, so they're going to lose games? I'm very interested how the committee does that, because you've never seen this unprecedented times. But if multiple SEC teams go 9-3, 10-2, or whatever, I think most of them will get the not the SEC bias, but basically the benefit of the doubt. They'll get the benefit of the doubt in the SEC playing all that tough schedule. You look at that. So, if Florida goes 9-3 with that schedule they have, which they got work to do in Gainesville, but if they go 9-3, I think they should get the benefit of the doubt with how tough that schedule is in Gainesville at Florida. I mean, it's a tough schedule for Florida. Tough schedule. But if that all happens, we could see an SEC champ not being undefeated. Maybe an SEC champ with 2 losses. 2 losses. Maybe. Which then they get in. So there's just so many scenarios that could play out in the SEC. I'm very excited to watch the SEC play this year. I think it's going to be very good. I think they are the top conference, SEC toughest conference to play. But if all of this happens, that would be a great thing to see, great story to unfold, how the committee handles that. But the next what if also involves the college football playoff expansion. What if two group of 5 teams go undefeated? Which, if you look at it, most group of 5 teams, they have a Power 4 conference team that they're going to play. So they're going to have to go through that. But Liberty, for example, they do not. Liberty does not have a Power 4 conference team. But if multiple group of 5 teams go undefeated, if a group of 5 team walks to a Power 4 place and they win, and they beat the rest of their schedule, they go undefeated, how does the committee handle that? That you've never seen that. You've never seen 2 group of 5 teams really be that high up in the rankings or deserve it like that. But if that happens, that would change everything. Because then that will knock, as if I go backwards a little bit, the SEC team that went 9-3, you compare that to an undefeated group of 5 team that walked into a Power 4 place, or the Liberty team, if they can go undefeated, you look at that, you compare it, it's a great scenario. I mean, it'd be a chaotic scenario, let me tell you that. But if 2 group of 5 teams go in, are they going to put both in? Are they going to put both those group of 5 teams in? Which you'll have to see. For example, you got to look at Notre Dame as well. Notre Dame isn't playing a conference game. I'm kind of categorizing Notre Dame into this group of 5 scenario. So if Notre Dame can go undefeated, they beat Florida State. They have them. They can beat Texas A&M, USC. If Notre Dame go undefeated and another group of 5 team go undefeated, those 2 teams automatically, I think they should get in. I mean, it's unprecedented. We don't know. But that would cause a lot of chaos. That's just some food for thought about the group of 5 teams. But if that happens, that would cause complete chaos. But I'm excited for that. But there's a lot of what ifs. I'm going to have more what ifs. I'm going to try to do a what if segment at the end of each podcast. Or episode, as I should say. But that is all for today's episode. It was a short one, not a lot. I just want to go over a few things, just a little college football update for July 7th here. I hope everyone had a great 4th of July. We'll be having more episodes come out in the future, so stay updated for that. Subscribe, comment, like the video, everything. Please do it. Help grow the channel. But that is all for today's episode. I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. And as always, thank you for tuning in.